I am joined by Tom Finn, director at Edwards and Finn, coming to us from Newcastle. How are you, sir?
Very well, very well. How are you doing?
I am well. I am hanging out at really nice hotel, club, and spa, the Houstonian,
Oh,
down the
nice.
street from my office, actually.
Oh, nice. Are you utilizing any of the services while you're there?
As soon as we get done, I got a massage lined up. No, I don't know. I don't even know if they're doing that. Uh, so, Tom, tell us what's going on. We know the market's not great, but what kind of reality are you experiencing?
Sure. I mean, you're right. The market isn't great. That's not news to anybody, to be quite honest with you. I can obviously talk from experience, but also conversations that I've been having with a number of businesses. You know, Edwards and Finn, we placed people in April, May, and June, but we had a dip in July. If I'm completely honest with you, it just completely dried up. We didn't see any jobs coming in at all. And don't get me wrong, April, May, and June, it wasn't like sort of 3 or 4 jobs a month. It was more like one. But at least we saw some consistency. And then we saw a gap, as I said, in July. August seemed to pick up a bit for us, and we've actually got 2 different roles on final stage interviews next week. So fingers crossed for those. But other than that, it's been pretty difficult. The reality is, and it's something that I've been talking about on a number of different occasions, is it's not actually the candidate. It's not the candidate skills that are the issue. It's not that they're not right for these jobs. It's just the sheer amount of competition that they've got. And what I'm finding anyway is as soon as you see a job on a job board, you're already too late.
Yeah.
It's simple as that. You're competing immediately with 50 to 100 people, if not more. And what we need to do, I suppose, as agencies, as consultancies, as people that are building relationships with our clients, is we need to be trying to find out all those inside tracks, those whispers, those things that are going on behind closed doors to get people into these types of opportunities, which is what we've been trying to do. But if you're not, and I feel for all these candidates that I'm talking to right now, because I get texts and emails from people saying, look, I went for another job, didn't get it. The awful thing is people aren't even getting feedback from clients. It's got to a point where because they've got so much choice and there's so much, I suppose, going on, they're doing 50 interviews and having to round those down. Interview processes aren't any easier. They've just got more choice, but that doesn't make them any easier. It's just a different challenge. And what I'm finding is the problem, you've got great candidates that are now getting rejected just because of very small differences between 2 fantastic candidates, but one of them obviously gets the job. That person's then left guessing. I suppose the wind's taken out of them because they're thinking, oh my God, I could have a job at the end of this. And all of a sudden they're back to square one. And it is difficult, but I do think that, and it's very easy for somebody like me to say this right now, but it is about staying positive. It is about staying motivated. And it's about being creative with how you're doing things.
Is there a profile of the hotels that are hiring right now? Or is it all over the place?
I would say it's more, well, from my experience, but it's your smaller hospitality groups. So your smaller, I suppose, less branded, more sort of multi-branded, smaller groups, just simply because they've been able to be a lot more dynamic, a lot more creative, but a lot more responsive or proactive, in fact, rather than reactive to the pandemic. I held a meeting. I know obviously we didn't talk about this prior to this, but I held a meeting in August, which basically brought 14 heads of revenue, directors of revenue, and commercial directors all together, from your large corporates through to your smaller brands. They're all competitors, but they all knew that they needed to come together in a time like this. So I basically said to all of them, we need to get into a room and we need to discuss this because we're not going to get anywhere unless we don't work as a collective. And it worked. But what the corporates realized was they are so behind in terms of how they're doing things, in terms of they're almost sort of dragging their heels. And they were looking at these smaller, more autonomous groups that were able to work in an agile manner to be able to respond to what's going on. And they've got an opportunity right now to get some fantastic candidates in the group, whereas 6 or 8 months ago, they probably wouldn't have been able to get these guys. But now they're able to utilize it. So they're taking this as a a big opportunity, which is why we've seen smaller hospitality groups recruiting right now. It's just their time.
Yeah. And it's a crazy time for revenue managers if you're working. I mean, it's like nothing they've ever experienced. And it's the type of person that is a revenue manager, they must be going crazy. But because
Yeah.
they they like things so, and they got to have the data and they got to plan things out.
Yeah.
They're not marketers
No,
because I'm all over I'm fine with chaos. But so where are they at? Like, what are the expectations moving forward for a revenue manager?
Okay, so again, this is a topic that I've spoken about on a number of occasions on different channels, but also my own. The expectation of a revenue manager has massively changed, and this is no surprise to a lot of people that will probably watch this, but it's massively changed over the last 10, 15, 20 years. It's no longer this sort of backroom, dark sort of techie that's creating reports, passing those on, but not stepping out of this dark room. It's now a commercial, and it's seen as a commercial role. They are in the boardroom, they are talking to people. The expectation is now that a revenue manager, almost above all else, on par with being highly analytical, they have to be able to communicate. They have to be able to influence. They have to be able to objection handle. These are all things that generally comes from sales. These are all things that are trained in sales roles. These aren't generally revenue management things, but they've had to, because if you can have the best strategy in the world, but if you can't communicate it effectively, it will never get off the ground. And that's what the expectation is now, is revenue management. You actually sort of mentioned it, but they have to be on the marketing side. They have to be on the sales side. They have to, we talk about this quite a lot, but we have to break down these silos, get rid of this silo mentality and work as a more commercially rounded role. That's what I'm seeing, and that's what we're seeing in the UK market anyway. And that's what my clients are looking for. That's what they want. They want somebody that is going to be a commercial manager rather than just a pure siloed revenue manager. We need somebody technical that's got 5 years revenue management experience. They have to be based in London. Forget all that. Those times are gone. Those times have changed. What we're looking for is somebody that can communicate at a fantastic level, but is also highly analytical.
Are you running into those types of people? Those types of revenue managers, or do they exist?
They do. They do,
because I've talked to a few, but
they certainly do. And I do think that's one thing. Again, it's not something we've spoken about, but E&Ftv, my channel, does exactly that. We're raising awareness of what revenue management actually is, and it's making it accessible. Whereas before, everybody's expectation, or everybody's, I suppose, thought process when you talk about revenue management is, oh, they're numbers guys. Don't worry about them. They're numbers driven. They're report driven. They're analytical. That's what they do in and out. The fact is, they're not. They're incredibly well-rounded. They're fantastic, sort of commercially minded leaders, and they could manage. In my opinion, they could manage the sales, marketing teams and be that commercial head. That's what I see it going towards. Now, of course, I'm going to have sales, director of sales or director of marketing. No, they could not, but they could. It's as simple as that. And I'm up for that discussion. But yes, those candidates are out there, and yes, they are open to new opportunities, and yes, they could fill them.
All right, Tom. I appreciate you joining me today.
No, thanks very much. It's been a pleasure.
You bet.